So today we're going to be talking about psychology, most specifically sports psychology. And the reason why is I have the pleasure of meeting Gravesend Rugby Football Club's ladies team, and I said that we were going to speak about this in terms of how do you make sure that you're ready for competition mentally, how do you make sure that you're going to be as receptive as possible and as optimistic as possible when you're playing, and also how to make sure that your nerves don't get to you. But I'll be honest, I forgot to talk about it, so here we are. Now, whenever we speak about sports performance and sports psychology, we're automatically going really into the realm of CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, or one of my favourite topics, Stoic philosophy. And this is because sport is extremely unpredictable and it's extremely difficult to control our environment when we're playing. Now, this means that we can't focus or rely on controlling our environment. We can only rely on controlling ourselves, or at least our perspective or our attitude to what is going on. For example, a loss or a try scored against us, or a punch in the face, for example in boxing, can affect us very differently depending on the individual. We want to make sure that we are as in an optimum state of mind, an optimum state of perception as possible when we're playing. So here it goes. These are my top 3 tips to improving your sports performance, or let's call it your general performance psychology. Now, the first thing I wanted to share with you is the metaphor of the archer. And this is an extremely popular metaphor in Stoic philosophy. And it goes like this. The archer, or the Stoic archer, is in control of his arrow as he's firing it from his bow, all the way up until the point where the arrow actually leaves the bow. After that, he has no control. He has no control over the wind, he has no control if the target moves. The only option he has, if the target moves or if the bow flies or the arrow flies off track, is to take another shot. That is it. Now, what this teaches us is to control or focus on what is controllable. If someone scores a try against you, you are no longer in control of that try being scored. Your only option is to focus on what you're going to do next to stop that from happening again. Now, the reason why this is quite a lovely metaphor is, first of all, it forces us quite nicely to focus on what we can control and not on what we can't control. And that actually liberates us from a great sense of anxiety. When you go to next perform, when you go next to play, I want you to have a list in your mind of what you can control and also what you can't control. I want you to throw away or throw out any focus or any anxiety, if you can, about what you can't control. And I want you to drive all of your attention to focusing on what you can control. Make a list of 3 to 5 things before you play. It might be that I am going to focus on the opposite member of the team and try my hardest to make sure that I inhibit their progress. It could be that I'm going to focus on these particular plays that I have in mind, and I'm going to stick to them no matter what happens, obviously with exception. Or it could be that you actually draw your attention to what you do before you play. You're going to make sure that your nutrition is on point, you're going to make sure that you get a good night's sleep, that you train super hard, and then you're going to focus on those things because they're controllable, and then you're going to let fate play out however it might play out. The second tip is to actually meditate and visualize on not just our successes but also our failures. I'll explain why. There are studies to show that individuals who regularly visualize on their performance, or a good performance, can actually improve their performance by doing so. And this is because our perception in our mind isn't too far away from what actually happens in reality. So, for example, this study was performed on individuals who had to perform three-pointers in basketball. Individuals who practiced and individuals who visualized practicing, there wasn't too much of a difference between their performance, but those who practiced or visualized did a lot better than those who did nothing, right? So I want you to visualize before you play. Spend 5 minutes before you go to bed each night even, or even 5 minutes before you actually practice. I want you to visualize going through a process, or going through a process which leads to a desirable outcome. Could be you visualizing you stepping someone. It could be you visualizing yourself in a scrum, scoring a kick or conversion. Any of these things, and just play that over and over again in your mind. This can then hardwire those neurological pathways which enable you to do a good job. The second is I want you to visualize your failures, and this is what I mean. This is actually quite effective for me. I used to have a lot of performance anxiety when I was boxing. I would get very, very nervous before I got into the ring. So I decided that I would meditate on the image of my opponent and their face, right up against my face. I'd close my eyes and imagine I'd see their face, and I'll try and calm my heart rate as much as possible. So here I'm meditating on conflict, or getting as close to my opponent as I possibly could, which is what gave me anxiety, basically being in close contact with someone who wants to take my head off, right? It could be for you that you visualize going head to head with your opponent, you visualize staring at the entire lineup of your opponents, or it could be you visualizing just before that first kick is made. And I want you to really focus on what causes you anxiety or stress, and at the same time try and calm your heart rate as much as possible. Now, this was actually popularized by the author of the book 7 Rings, which was written by a famous samurai who would visualize being cut thousands of times by his opponent, or would visualize having 1,000 arrows shot into him all at once. Give this a go, and you should find that when it comes to the match, you generally feel better in yourself. The last tip, number 3, is to have a ritual. Focus on a ritual which combines rhythm, affirmations, i.e. saying positive things, and also focusing on the meaning of why you're putting yourself through such hardship. Make sure that you spend a few minutes doing this as a team before you play, and you should find that your anxiety reduces and your rigor increases. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below, and I look forward to seeing a lot of you soon. Thank you.